Psychology Behind Room 101, George Orwell's 1984. I will be reading excerpts from pages 325 to 329, or from Part 3, Chapter 5. The Phobias of Control, pages 325 to 326. You asked me once, said O'Brien, what was in room 101. I told you that you knew the answer already. Everyone knows it. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world. The door opened again. A guard came in carrying something made of wire, a box of basket of some kind. He set it down on the further table because of the position in which O'Brien was standing. Winston could not see what the thing was. The worst thing in the world, said O'Brien, varies from individual to individual. It may be burial alive, or death by fire, or by drowning, or by impalement, or 50 other deaths. There are cases where it is some quite trivial thing, not even fatal. He had moved a little to one side so that Winston had a better view of the thing on the table. It was an oblong wire cage with a handle on top for carrying it by. Fixed to the front of it was something that looked like a fencing mask, with the concave side outwards. Although it was 3 or 4 meters away from him, he could see that the cage was divided lengthwise into 2 compartments, and that there was some kind of creature in each. They were rats. In your case, said O'Brien, the worst thing in the world happens to be rats. A sort of premonitory tremor. A fear of he was not certain what had passed through Winston as soon as he caught his first glimpse of the cage. But at this moment the meaning of the mask-like attachment in front of it suddenly sank into him. His bowels seemed to turn to water. So as you can see, O'Brien is trying to mentally break down Winston's defense mechanisms through the use of phobias. Totalitarian societies have always used torture, threats of death, and actual death to degrade and chip away at the human conscience, making it nothing but a lifeless husk in order to maintain control by any means necessary. Interestingly, this reminds me of the little Albert experiment, where the baby Albert, who initially was not afraid of animals, became classically conditioned to fear rats, which then was generalized to other animals like rabbits. This was done by hitting a loud object, like a hammer, behind Albert every time the rat was displayed, and thus resulted in the creation of a phobia. This experiment was cruel, but shows how phobias can be created and used to condition and control people. Torture and phobias are used to generate fear in people, which allows for the easy compliance and control by the authority figures, a most cruel disposition. Fight or flight. This is an excerpt from page 327. By itself, he said, pain is not always enough. There are occasions when a human being will stand out against pain, even to the point of death. But for everyone, there is something unendurable, something that cannot be contemplated. Courage and cowardice are not involved. If you are falling from a height, it is not cowardly to fill your lungs with air. It is merely an instinct which cannot be disobeyed. It is the same with the rats. For you, they are unendurable. They are a form of pressure that you cannot withstand, even if you wished to. You will do what is required of you. So the fight or flight response is an ancient instinct dependent upon the sympathetic nervous system, and it is affected by the hormone and neurotransmitter adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. Since it is an instinct, it bypasses the prefrontal cortex, which deals with logical planning and metacognitive thinking. In essence, this reduces a thinking man to an individual animal, to a rabid beast, something that totalitarian authorities would like you to believe because it is easier to control and manage animals like livestock. Such are the tools of control. Learned helplessness and hopelessness. O'Brien picked up the cage and, as he did so, pressed something in it. There was a sharp click. Winston made a frantic effort to tear himself loose from the chair. It was hopeless. Every part of him, Even his head was held immovably. O'Brien moved the cage nearer. It was less than a meter from Winston's face. "I have pressed the first lever," said O'Brien. "You understand the construction of this cage. The mask will fit over your head, leaving no exit. When I press this other lever, the door of the cage will slide up. These starving brutes will shoot out of it like bullets. Have you ever seen a rat leap through the air? They will leap onto your face and bore straight into it. Sometimes they attack the eyes first. Sometimes they burrow through the cheeks and devour the tongue." Perhaps the thing that totalitarians want most of all is to extinguish your sense of hope. Hope is very strong and can make individuals sacrifice everything for it. This cannot be in totalitarian societies because they need to protect the state from any chance of rebellion. Thus, they employ all means necessary to maintain control and stamp out hope for the future. When you live day to day, not thinking about tomorrow, you become easily controlled just like an animal. O'Brien then keeps taunting Winston, talking up what the British rats would do to him, degrading his psychological defense mechanisms. This is to enforce the notion of learned helplessness, or when individuals learn to give up. That is the best case scenario for authoritarians, because in it there is no hope of escape. Similarly, experiments in learned helplessness have shown that animals like dogs and elephants and many others learn to become helpless, being unable to escape their situation. As a result, even with just a little bit of control, they remain forlorn and give up any chance to flee. No higher loyalties. This is an excerpt from page 329. The mask was closing on his face. The wire brushed his cheek. And then, no, it was not relief. Only hope. A tiny fragment of hope. Too late, perhaps too late. But he had suddenly understood that in the whole world there was just one person to whom he could transfer his punishment. One body that he could thrust between himself and the rats. And he was shouting frantically over and over, "Do it to Julia! Do it to Julia! Not me! Julia! I don't care what you do to her. Tear her face off. Strip her to the bones. Not me. Not me." Now I think this is the final nail in the coffin. What authoritarians want the most. They want to break up the last remaining libidinal and familial ties that we have with each other. Without it, there are no more kinship bonds, no friends, no families, no lovers, no acquaintances, no higher loyalties. The only thing left is a relationship with the state and the state alone. That is truly hell on earth, when there is no more love, just lonely, mindless devotion to the state and a willingness to cast someone else, to rat them out, regardless of your own relationship bonds with others. For the state, as a result, achieves totalizing power over the individual forever. Hence, in summary, the state can employ phobias, fears, the fight or flight instinct, learn helplessness and hopelessness, and finally the destruction of authentic connections with others to maintain their grip on control and power over the individual. This finally concludes my in-depth videos about George Orwell's 1984. It's quite a depressing note, I know, but now you guys are all equipped with recognizing totalitarianism and the growth of the ever-controlling, ever-authoritarian state. It has been quite an eye-opening journey. Thank you for watching my videos and have a good day. Bye-bye.